Alright guys, now that we have our level outline, it's time to start using Maya to actually create some assets. For that we're going to have to learn how to model and how to operate within Maya. I recommend you download the LT version because it's more game development friendly, apart from other stuff too. So it's quite daunting at first. Believe me, the LT version, while people say that it lacks a lot of features such as rendering capabilities, that's something you don't really need when you're developing a game because you'll be rendering in the engine. The polygon limitation, people keep talking about it, is only enforced when you're exporting not into an engine, so that's fine too. Which is the main issue a lot of people have with the LT, but believe me, it's still packed with plenty of features. And at first, it might be daunting to just take a look at this because you got all sorts of stuff. You got these, bunch of menus here. Then you got the, whatever this is here, right? I mean, you don't even know what these channels and object and shows are. And then you got these shelves and right. And then this is just the tip of the iceberg. You got these different the setups for animation, modeling, rigging, right, shading, all that jazz. And you've got these workspaces here, right? Maya export, right? As you can see, there's a bunch of Mel scripting. Okay, so there's plenty of stuff to learn, but we're just gonna focus on the basics for now, right? We don't really need most of the stuff that's available in this engine. Well, not the engine; it's the software, but it's not unlike an engine in itself. Okay, so instead of focusing on all this stuff right here, right, we should actually, I believe, focus on the viewport because that's what we're going to be using most of the time. And before we begin doing absolutely anything at all, we should first realize that this is very similar to the viewport in Unreal Editor. Okay, the engine itself, the engine features mirror themselves quite a lot along different software applications, right? Blender or whatever. Um, so Modo, okay. Most softwares have some kind of an established standard, okay. So without further ado, let's just create a torus so that we have an object, right? You can zoom in with your mouse wheel, obviously. If you don't have a mouse wheel, you can use your buttons with Alt, but really everybody has a mouse wheel these days. If you notice that if you hold Alt, right, and it's you'll be able to dolly around the object just like in Unreal Engine 4. This is also known as the Maya workflow, at least the Maya viewport type controls. Okay, let's see what else we could get from the Unreal Engine. So in Unreal Engine W enabled us to translate objects, and as you can see, the exact same shortcut does the same thing for our torus here. We can move it around, and the same principles apply, right? The only difference is that there is really no snapping. I mean, as you can see, there's no such thing as snapping to the grid. Okay, there's this pretty precise stuff. Obviously, snapping is available, but there's a shortcut for it. But for now, let's just focus on the toolkit. As you can see, it's right here, right? I pressed W, it popped up, move tool. Same thing goes for E, which enables the rotation. Now, as you can see, the rotate tool is not as robust as the one in UE4. The one in UE4 has a lot more feedback. So if I start rotating this along the x-axis, you will see that I won't be actually getting any degree readouts over here. I'll be getting all my stuff here on the right. But let's, as I said, ignore it for a second. Just ignore everything here. Just focus on the viewport. Perhaps I should maximize it, but that's fine. After that, we've got the R, which allows us to scale. And again, the same principles work here, right? You can flip an object if you scale it reversely, just like in UE4. You can scale it uniformly or along particular axes, like two of them. Right. The difference is that when you press Q, you're actually going to leave any of that mode, all of these modes. Okay. So that's very nice and dandy. But the more eagle-eyed among you will actually notice that if we look over here at the bottom left corner, there's actually a discrepancy here, right? The up axis in Maya is actually Y and not Z, like in UE4. So we need to rectify this, and we also need to set up a project so that all of our stuff is actually, in one place. So what we need to do is go onto File and go to Set Project, right? And here we have a bunch of different projects. In fact, actually, let's just open the project window. I believe it's a better option. Let's go to the project window. As you can see, the current project is default, right? And the primary stuff is like, this is your project hierarchy. Now, as it is right now, it's actually in My Documents, Maya, whatever. What we need to do is we need to set up a new project folder, okay, as in project location. So what we're going to do, go back into File and go to Set Project, and we actually need to go into our projects. This is where all the stuff is going to be, and we're going to set it up, set the directory to be this. Create a default workspace. Well, in this case, not really, no. Let's just go to project window then. All right, create a new project, and we're gonna store it in the same place where it went just now. Where did it go? Like this is the other one. Work setup, projects, Maya. So this is the folder where we're gonna have all the projects that we are ever gonna have, and then here the current project is gonna be Wormball because that's our game. Obviously, you can define these and rename these folders here, but I recommend just keeping the same folder structure. You got secondary folder structures as well. You could rename too, but I really don't recommend doing any of these. Just set up your project and click accept. This will immediately set it up so that we have our first project in the correct folder. There's also a little bit of a question mark here about the axis here, right? The main vertical axis. So we need to go to Windows, right? Go to General Editors, Settings and Preferences, and click Preferences. There's a bunch of stuff here, really, but in general, we need to actually set up the. Let me just make this a little bit bigger, right? Like so. We need to set up the axes. So what we need to do here is go to Display, I believe. No. Settings. Yes, Settings. The up axis is Y. We need to set it up to Z. And if your working units were not on centimeter, you should set it up to be on centimeters because that's what UE4 operates on. Okay, so as you can see here, I've got it set to centimeter, and the degrees would be in degrees, unless you're some kind of genius that wants to work with radians. I suggest you keep it to degrees. And last but not least, you want to have some kind of backup. Now, obviously, the Perforce that we set up, it could work with Maya. There's a plugin for that, and you could set it up, but I believe it's kind of redundant because, how should I say it? Most of the time, you probably will be working on your own project. You won't need other people, dabbling with your rigs and with your models. So we're going to go into Files and Projects, and as you can see, you have the recent history size and all that stuff, and there's the autosave, which will be disabled by default, which you need to enable it. Prompt before save is nice because you don't want it to be saving in the middle of your workflow. And obviously you can have a limited autosave number, and you can have you can set up the interval between the autosaves. It's nice to have around because if you have a crash or if the electricity dumps down, you'll only lose 15 minutes of work at most. Especially if you have unlimited autosaves, you could go all the way back to your initial project. Okay, that's it for now. Really, we don't really need to change anything else. There's quite a lot of options here, as you can see. You could definitely go around and play with that. You can set up different snap tolerances for the grid, etc. But in general, we're done for now. So we're going to save that. Really, what we need to do, as you can see, the moment we swapped it, the actual object we were using got flipped because relative to the world, right? By the way, F also focuses, right, on your object, just like in Unreal Engine 4, so that's handy. You could actually rotate it if you wanted to, but you know, that's not really, there's no real need for it right now. We'll just leave it the way it is. Now, an important thing to note here is that right now, as you can see, we can only move the object as, you know, in itself, like the whole thing. So there's not much use for a donut. At least we don't have much use for a donut. So how do we actually modify this stuff? And what exactly is this donut made of? As you can see, there's this cage around it. So let's first open up the go to Windows and go to General Editors and check, sorry, the Settings and Preferences, and go to Hotkey Editor. This is nice to have around just so that you can see which hotkey is used for what. It's very handy because let's say you press Control, it's going to show you which hotkeys are used for what. You can hover over them and they'll give you a detailed breakdown. Obviously Shift works the same way, and there's combinations between Control and Shift. There's also Alt, I believe, and Control Alt and Shift Alt. I don't think there's Control Alt and Shift. Yeah, Control Alt and Shift is empty. Obviously you can define your own stuff at some point, right? You can define your own hotkeys. I have mine defined over here, and I'm going to save those and close them. The reason I did that is because there's several things that I like. Now, by default, these are at F9, F10, F11. But what it is allows you to go into component modes. As you can see right now, I can only select the object, right? I got no other options. If I go into face selection, right, I can suddenly select the pieces that this object is made of. So this would be a face, right? As you can see, this is a face, another face. I could go into edge selection, which enables me to select edges, and obviously vertex selection, which allows me to select points. And whenever I select these, I can actually manipulate them much like a regular object. So I've got loads of abilities here I can manipulate this object in a variety of ways. So just with that knowledge, it allows you to actually you know, do some modeling, because the moment you decide, let's say, to move this vertex, right? Let's focus on it. For some reason, by the way, holding Alt and middle mouse button allows you to actually pan the stuff around. For some reason, the dolly doesn't really work the right way as it is, but I'm not sure why. Anyway, what you want to do is just, let me show you, you can modify the shape of your object just by dragging something, right? As you can see, I've dragged one point and all of a sudden I've changed the shape of the object. So this allows you to model stuff, and in general this is how polygon modeling works. No, thank you. So as you can see, there's really not that much difficulty in doing anything about it. The thing is, at the top left here, you can actually see things called verts, edges, and polygons, and this is exactly the right thing you need to look at. So this is a polygon, right? Also known as a quad in this case, because if you go into face mode, you'll see that it's got 4 points, right? It's got this point, this point, this point, and this point. So altogether, they create a quad. Computer graphics are usually rendered in triangles, so the reason we use quads is because it's easier to understand what's going on, right? If these were all triangles, believe me, it wouldn't be nearly as easy to understand what kind of shape we have. And you can even see here we got 400 verts and we got twice that amount of edges. We got 400 polygons because we got that many verts connected together, and we got 800 tries because if you run a diagonal across a like a square, you get a triangle, right? Don't worry about UVs for now. But this is basically the weight of your object, okay? How heavy, how intensive it is for you to actually render, right? How heavy, how much stuff there is to process. And here you can see that you can select different edges. So if I select 2 edges, 3 edges, it shows you how many edges you've selected out of the whole thing, right? So there's that. What else? Let me see. I could triangulate this for you. I just don't think I remember where exactly it went. The thing was, so I think it was an edit mesh. No, it was mesh, triangulate, there it is. And suddenly, as you can see, it doesn't look nearly as appetizing. Okay, I mean, this is a mess, right? Which one would you rather work with? With this, right? You suddenly have a lot more edges to work with as well. So if you want to modify this object, it's a lot more difficult to work with a face or with like edges, right? Because edges are not exactly, like you can't get a good enough edge loop, right? Maybe you could get this one. No, it doesn't really get it. So like it's just not made. You're not supposed to work with triangles, right? So stick to polygons. If I should be able to go back to the original, there we go. So yeah, this is how it's going to look, and therefore people use quads. Now, one more thing. All of this stuff here is accessible through a menu that pops up when you hold up space. And as you can see, you've got File at the top here, Edit, Create, Select, Modify, Display, all that jazz. And you've got this stuff right here, okay? Now, the reason that they're here is because they never change, okay? No matter what you're doing, these never change, okay? However, when you change the, let's say, go from modeling to rigging, as you can see, the menu setup suddenly changes. So we've got, again, the File, Edit, Create, right? This stuff here. However, the stuff here at the bottom is now available to us. I believe it changes based on, oh, it doesn't. Well, how cool is that? Right, well, so this stuff does not actually work the way I expected. I thought this stuff changed based on the menu set, but in general, here are your menu sets all available in one go then, which is even handier. Because as you can see, skins, skeleton, skin, deform, constrain, and control are still here. Okay, this is your animation stuff, and your rigging stuff is also available here for deforming. So this is for rigging, and this is for animation. Don't, like, if you notice, we got 2 deforms and 2 constraints, but they're for different menu sets. Okay, so these things change. As you can see, it's quite handy, because instead of choosing a drop down here and going to animation, shading, or rigging, you actually have it all in one go. So you can do all these things at the same time. Also, if you only press space once, you go into your perspective, like you go into your viewport mode here. You can maximize different viewports, right? That's why I set it up as space on UE4. One more thing you need to figure out is that the buttons 1, 2, 3, 4, like there's a bunch of settings here for the viewport. But number 1 basically gives you the default view. Number 2 gives you a more rounded view with a cage. So maybe this is not the best example. Let me just get a square. So if I press 2, you'll see that I'm going to smooth it out, but the cage of my original object is still visible. If I press 3, I'm only going to see the final result if I decide to smooth it out right now. Okay. Obviously, these are your shading view, well, just preview modes, okay? You also have 4, 5, 6, and 8, which basically are just shortcuts for viewport control, where number 5 is your shaded, number 4 is your wireframe, right? You got the 6, which is shaded display with texture maps, assuming you have any texture maps, and then you get your lights availability here. So all these are available here in the buttons too, so you can use those, or you can use your keyboard shortcuts. I like to leave it on shaded for now. But by the way, notice that this object is a lot more simple than the torus that we used. So as you can see, we've got a lot less verts, edges, and polygons to work with. So that's a nice addition. So always try to use the most simple object that depicts the thing that you need to actually depict in the game. Okay, don't try to add polygons. Obviously, the more polygons it has, the more defined, and the more well defined, the more details it will have to. But it will also be heavier to render. So yeah, these are really your basically go-to tools when it comes to modeling. In this case, for example, if I wanted to make something out of this cube, I would go into, let's say, a vertex mode. And what if I went in one of the perspective mode, in one of the topological modes here, and I only see 2 of them. So maybe I want to move one of the sides of the cube, and I want to make it look more like a ramp or something, right? So I could always do that, but notice that if I do that, I'm only grabbing one of these verts, right? So this is what happened, and as you can see, this is a different result from what I was expecting. So what you want to do actually when you're working one of these is drag and select both of the verts on both sides. As you can see, I've selected both of the verts, right? And this is the top view, obviously. And now I can actually move the whole edge. Now, of course, you could always just grab the edge, right? You could go and grab the edge and do the exact same thing, right? But I'm just demonstrating a concept here, how you can work with what you already know. In general, with these tools, you can make a worm. You can make some pretty simple shapes. You can make complex shapes. Everything else in this program is made to make it easier for you to actually perform these actions. Okay, let's say this is not enough detail for you, and you need to add some edge loops. You could always do that. There's also a contextual menu when you hold the right mouse button. As you can see, you've got all these modes that we just talked about: edge, vertex, object mode. You got the face mode. You got the UV mode, which we're not going to go into. The vertex face is nice, but that's when you're hunting for rogue, rogue polygons where you have some tris there that don't belong in the place, so you can actually blow the object up and see what's going on. But in general, you won't really need to use that much, the mode. And like I said, I like to use the F1, F2, F3, and F4 for these operations. So I recommend you change your hotkeys, to represent your, how should I say it, personal choice for a workflow, at least for a keyboard, the keyboard setup. Okay. And one more thing, by the way. Don't always think that you need to start with a cube. Obviously you could, and you could make from this cube anything you want, really, but these primitives here exist for a reason. It allows you to basically start with a more solid base and then work up something from that. Okay, assuming your focus works. Come on. Right. Well, next time I restart, it's going to sort it out. But as you can see, it's still screwed up because everything I do gets flipped, right? You can also set it up so that you can, well, how should I say it? Interactively create stuff. So if you go into create, or you hold space and go into create, and you can say polygon primitives, which is exactly what we've been creating so far. Notice all of them are here, okay? They're here as well as here. Now this at the top here is the shelf. So it's really pick your own poison. Which one do you want to use? This stuff or the menu stuff? Learning to work with the menu is a lot more beneficial though, because this just takes some space in your screen, which is valuable when you're modeling, because you want to be able to see you want to have the most space taken up on your monitor for modeling. Obviously, if you have two monitors, you could just have your viewport on one side and everything else on this side, right? But in general, if you only have one monitor, you want to maximize your real estate here for working, right? This is the viewport. This is where you work. So let's just create some interactive stuff. So we go into interactive creation. Select that, and then we can actually go and create a I don't know, a torus in this case. So now I can actually drag, and I can select where I want to drag, maybe here, right? This is the radius, and then I want to set up the inner one, the inner radius here, okay? And there's my torus. All right, as you can see, it's all nice and done. For some reason I'm flipped over. But that doesn't really matter because this is just a demonstration. We're not going to be modeling in this video, but at least you'll be able to work around and play with this stuff. I recommend disabling, by the way, this feature, because I find it annoying, really, at least in my case. And anytime you want to create something, you can always just create it through here. and it's going to give you some extra settings for a sphere, for example, etc. You can click create, and there you go, your settings are applied. Okay, so just kill that for now, and really just get a primitive, play around with it, try to get it to something, right? In our case, in the next video, I'm going to go about some of the contextual menus here that are available to us, such as the right mouse button and all these things here. And the cool thing about this menu, by the way, is that if you press and hold Shift, you'll get the sculpting tools. As you can see right here, you've got most of the stuff that's available to you. You can see it in this menu here. And if you hold Control, these are your selection controls. And you hold Control and Shift at the same time, you've got your symmetry controls and like constraints, etc. So this is a very powerful way to work, assuming you get used to the space and the right mouse button, and a lot of the things and the operations that you can perform with these buttons here, and with these little settings here, because you can pop out your modeling toolkit and your different tool settings, right? So let's say if we go to modeling, you've got your attribute channels, right? And this is your modeling toolkit here. So this stuff really is available from many different places. It's up to you to choose where you want them from. I recommend you try to ignore this because, like I said already, you have all your object stuff here, right? You got your vertex mode, right? You got your edge mode, and you got your face mode, and you've got your UV selection mode, which well, let's just not do that UV stuff for now, because it's we first need to have a model before we start doing it with UVs. And you got all these tools here that you can generally access through your shelf here or through your right mouse button. For example, the multi-cut tool is available from the toolkit here, but it is also available from right mousing with the Shift, right? So if I right mouse with Shift, well, in this case, I'm already in the tool, so I need to exit the tool with Q. And now if I right mouse with Shift, I should have the multi-cut tool available to me somewhere here. Oh, I'm in face mode, my bad. There we go, multi-cut tool, right? So the context sensitive menu is in general very handy, okay, to pick up tools. Now obviously you can use all three of these at the same time if you decide to, right? But I try to use the right mouse button as much as I can, and then if I need something that doesn't actually show up in the menu over here, I try to use space and then try to figure out what exactly I need. For example, if I want to get one of the multi-cut tools, right, I just need to go into Edit Mesh, and I've got all these toolkits here. Tools, and those from the mesh side as well, and you've got the mesh tools, right? These are your mesh tools that you can work on the mesh. The edit mesh is stuff that works on the mesh by settings. That's how I break them down for me anyway. And you've got the mesh stuff, which are operations on the mesh itself. No, right? And obviously you can play around with these, and you can, like, documentation is very helpful here, by the way. Just play around with some of these menus. There's nothing you can break, okay? So if there's nothing you can break, you got nothing to lose. So you might as well go nuts. I'd close this, and I would really close this too. And you could even get rid of the channel box. We're going to talk about the channel box later, but for now, I think you've got plenty of stuff to work with. Try to make this into something that you think you could work with, right? Try to make it into a let's say, I don't know, some kind of weird pipe, right? Some kind of weird a tunnel, like you can cut something off. And the cool thing about modeling, by the way, is that you don't necessarily have to have realistic things. For example, if we were to cut this off, like imagine you don't see this bottom bit at all. In fact, let me do this. Go into face mode and edge mode or whatever. Come on, right? And just delete these. Suddenly, well, I deleted the opposite one, but as you can see here, now I have some kind of a, like, this could be a bridge, right? If I if I raise these edges here, this could be a bridge or maybe a little tunnel. All I need to do, for example, in this case, is to let's say connect this up so there's no hole here, and the player would never see this. All right, the player would actually never see this bottom bit. They'd be walking over the bridge, and this could be a river, let's say, at the going through. So I know it's crude, but it's all about getting the things to look at, and function the way you want. Like it's not about the primitives; it's about how you modify them and edit them so that you get the results that you need. And in general, you shouldn't be really striving for something extremely high definition. In other words, extremely high resistant resolution and stuff like that. For now, you want to focus on simple things that work. Okay, because like somebody could walk over this, and even if they didn't, let's say I could always modify this to be bigger, smaller. So this is a reusable asset that could fulfill many functions, right? Maybe I could raise this a little bit, and boom, I have an arch. And you could do this in the engine, right? You could do this in the engine. You don't have to be in Maya to perform this movement. For some reason, the freaking focus, the dolly button doesn't work right, and it pisses me off. But forget it for now anyway. When I restart Maya, we'll sort it out. Okay, that's it for this video, guys. So just practice. Well, don't practice. Just play around with it, all right? There's nothing to practice here. All we got to do in the next video is, maybe get a little bit better acquainted with all these boxes here, with the channel box. Like, what the hell is a channel box, right? Some of the inputs, what exactly do they mean? And maybe, sort out the look around here. As you can see, we can get rid of the animation pane here. But then again, this gets in the way, so you can get rid of that, and boom, now you have a lot more space to work with, right? And well, yeah, so enjoy for now. Also, before I finish this, look at the bottom left corner here. You've got like some kind of it's like a little help tip. Like that's where when you hover over something, it's going to give you information. So at the bottom, you can actually see some info that if it doesn't pop up immediately, right? So there's that, and yeah, that's it for me, guys. I'll see you next time when we're gonna delve a little bit deeper into this stuff. Now, as you've probably noticed, I'm not that comfortable with this software. I mean, there's still definitely a bunch of stuff that I don't know about. But the cool thing about game development is that you don't need to know about everything, and you learn as you go, right? So, you got to learn in order to do something. So as long as you have the basics covered, you can actually expand upon them. And, we're going to go into basics a little bit more in the next video. But for now, you know what a vert is, an edge is, a polygon is, how you can modify an object, right? You can use the same shortcuts as you do in Unreal Engine 4. And as such, you can actually, perform some basic modeling actions. You can import them into your engine. Right, something that wouldn't be available in the engine. Now, obviously, like I said, probably in the near future, or as you're watching this, it may have already been happening, that they will have a modeling toolkit, and it will be a basic toolkit of capable of all these things that we're doing right now. The difference between Maya and UE4 would be that Maya is a lot more powerful and robust software. Okay, so you'd be able to do this in UE4, but there's only so far you can go with this kind of stuff, right? You need animation, you need like more well-defined objects, and it's also how fast can you make something work, right? And you can experiment with different view modes as well. As you can see here, like because I haven't actually closed this thing, it's bugging out on the softening. Okay, so you can definitely see different effects when you don't close your meshes correctly. By the way, this is a mesh. I don't know if I forgot to say. I don't know. I think I forgot to tell you guys. But this is what a mesh is called. It's basically a 3D representation of something. Okay, right. Let me just delete that, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.